The first sign that my in-laws were going to try to destroy me came exactly 6 minutes into my husband's wake. I was standing next to Ellis's closed casket accepting condolences from guests when my father-in-law materialized beside me clutching a manila envelope for you. Gareth said, his voice carrying that aristocratic chill I'd grown used to over the past 3 years. Consider it a parting gift. My name is Anais. And until last Tuesday, I was married to Ellis Harding. Now I was a 32-year-old widow. Being handed eviction papers while my husband's body lay cold beside me, really. Father, now my sister-in-law Tiffany's voice dripped with fake concern. She'd positioned herself close enough to watch the show, although I suppose there's no time like the present to address unfortunate matters. I took the envelope without opening it. The weight of it felt familiar. Legal papers, probably drafted on the expensive letterhead their family lawyer favored. My hands didn't shake. I wouldn't give them that. Satisfaction. The prenuptial agreement was quite clear, Margaret, my mother-in-law whispered as she joined our little circle of grief. The estate home reverts to the family trust upon Ellis's death. We're being generous with the 30-day notice. The funeral home's air conditioning hummed somewhere behind us. A relative was crying softly. I smoothed my black dress and thought about the last conversation I'd had with Ellis 3 days before the accident. You know they'll come for you, he'd said, pressing a thick folder into my hands. When the time comes, and I pray it's decades from now, don't open this until they show their true colors, promise me. I'd promised tucking the folder away, assuming he was being paranoid. Ellis had always been worried about his family's reaction to our marriage, the middle-class girl who'd trapped their golden boy, the prenup. Gareth continued, clearly enjoying himself, which you signed so eagerly. Did you really think we wouldn't protect the family interests? I reached for my purse. The folder Ellis had given me was there, sealed exactly as he'd left it. Funny you should mention protecting family interests. Don't. Bother trying to contest anything. Tiffany snapped, Daddy's lawyers will bury you. I placed the folder on a nearby table, breaking the seal with deliberate slowness. Ellis mentioned, you might say that Ellis. Margaret's perfectly lined lips twitched. Dear Ellis trusted us to handle things appropriately after his passing, did he? I withdrew the first document because this post-nuptial agreement he had notarized last month suggests otherwise. The temperature in our little circle dropped. 10 degrees. Gareth's face went. From smug to stone. What post-nuptial agreement? He demanded, the one invalidating the prenup. I held up the paper, Ellis's bold signature clearly visible at the bottom, along with some interesting documents about the family trust. Would you like to see them here, or should we wait for tomorrow's meeting with Gerald? Tiffany grabbed for the paper. I pulled it back smoothly, tucking it into the folder. Touch me or these documents, I said quietly, and I'll have security escort you out of your own son's wake. Wouldn't that make an interesting story for your country club friends, you conniving little? Margaret started. Careful, Margaret, I met her eyes. We wouldn't want to make a scene. What would people think, Cruz? My younger brother-in-law chose that moment to stumble over, reeking of expensive scotch. What's happening? Why is everyone looking so serious? Nothing, Gareth cut in sharply. We're simply paying our respects. I smiled the way Ellis had taught me to smile at charity galas. Pleasant, practiced, perfect. Yes. We're all about respect today, aren't we? Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to greet the other mourners. We can discuss the estate tomorrow with lawyers present. As I turned away, Margaret caught my arm, her manicured nails dug into my skin. Whatever you think you're doing, she hissed, remember who we are? I gently removed her hand. Oh, I know exactly who you are. Ellis made sure of that. I patted the folder, and thanks to him, I finally have proof walking away. I could feel their stares burning into my back, Folder under my arm felt heavy with secrets, with power. With Ellis's final gift to me. The truth about his family. I touched the casket as I passed my fingers trailing along the polished wood. Game on my love, I whispered, just like you planned the envelope Gareth had handed me. His attempt at eviction was still unopened. I dropped it in a trash can on my way to greet the next group of mourners. I wouldn't be needing it. After all, I had something much better ammunition, as you can see, the post-nuptial. Agreement is quite thorough. Gerald Sherman's voice wavered slightly as he spread the documents across his mahogany conference table. Mr. Harding was very specific about his wishes. 24 hours after the wake, we sat in the family lawyer's office. The Hardings had arrived, expecting to formalize my eviction. Instead, they were watching their control slip away, one legal document at a time. This is absurd. Gareth slammed his fist on the table. Ellis would never. But he did. I interrupted, sliding forward, notarized deed the estate house, the summer property in Martha's Vineyard, and 30% of the family trust's liquid assets, all transferred to me legally and irrevocably. You manipulated him, Tiffany spat. Convinced him when he was vulnerable. The documents were drafted and signed 3 months ago. Gerald cut in, unable to meet Gareth's glare. Mr. Harding was in perfect health and sound mind. My best friend Nicole, who I'd brought as my witness, sat quietly taking notes. She'd known Ellis too, had seen how his family's manipulation had worn him down over the years. There must be some mistake in the asset inventory, Margaret said, her voice honey sweet, but her eyes cold. Several key properties are missing. I caught the quick glance between Gareth and Cruz. Interesting. You mean like the warehouse complex in Boston? I asked innocently. Or the offshore accounts Ellis mentioned in his letter? Cruz choked on his water. What letter? I pulled out Ellis's handwritten pages, watching their faces carefully. He left quite. Detailed notes about certain financial irregularities, particularly regarding the Hardy Foundation's charitable donations. That's enough. Gareth stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. Gerald, this meeting is over. We'll be contesting everything contest away, I said calmly. But while you do, I'll remain in control of the estate house. The postnup is already filed with the court. You gold-digging, Tiffany hissed. You think you can just actually? Nicole spoke up, her lawyer voice in full effect. She can, and if you continue with that language, we'll add harassment to the record. Margaret's perfect composure finally cracked. Ellis was our son, our flesh and blood. You were just some girl he met at a charity event. You have no right. I was his wife. My voice cut through her tirade like steel. The woman he chose to spend his life with, the one he trusted enough to tell everything to. I. stood up gathering my documents, and I do mean everything. Is that a threat? Cruz asked, suddenly looking nervous. No, just a fact. Like the fact that I've hired Alexander Holmes to audit the family accounts. I watched Gareth's face go pale. Ellis recommended him highly, said Alexander had already uncovered some interesting patterns. You're bluffing, Gareth said, but his voice lacked conviction. I pulled out my phone, showing them Alexander's text confirming our afternoon appointment. Would you like to bet your reputation on that? Gerald cleared his throat. Perhaps we should adjourn for today. The post-nuptial agreement will need to go through probate, but in the meantime, Mrs. Harding retains control of the specified properties. This isn't over, Margaret promised as they filed out. No, I agreed. It's really not. Once they were gone, Nicole turned to me. Holy Anna, that was intense. Ellis knew them better than anyone. I said, pulling out more documents from my folder. He left me everything. I'd need including proof of what they did to him. What do you mean? I showed her the maintenance records Ellis had collected, the suspicious transfers right before his accident. Help me go through these. There's something here, something bigger than just missing assets. Nicole's eyes widened as she scanned the papers. Anna, these dates. The brake inspection report looks altered. I know I touched Ellis's signature on the post-nup, remembering his words. Don't open this until they show their true colors. That's... why we're meeting Alexander. Ellis hired him months ago to investigate his family. Now I'm hiring him to finish the job. They're going to fight back hard. Nicole warned. I thought about the eviction papers at the wake, about years of snide comments and barely veiled threats about Ellis trying to break free from their control, dying in a car crash just weeks after changing his will. Let them fight, I said. Staring out Gerald's window at the Boston skyline, Ellis left me the weapons I need, and unlike them, I have nothing left to lose. Nicole squeezed my hand. What's our next move? I pulled out one final document. A list of properties in Cruz's name, purchased with money that should have been in the family trust. We start pulling threads, and we don't stop until the whole thing unravels. The game was on, and I intended to play it exactly as Ellis had planned, right down to the last devastating move 2 weeks before his death. Ellis tried to change his will. Alexander's growly voice filled my kitchen as he spread. Photographs across the island counter the paperwork was drafted but never filed. I stared at the images. Documents scattered across a desk. Ellis's signature clearly visible. How did you get these? Gerald Sherman's assistant. She kept copies of everything. Alexander tapped one photo, noticed the date stamp the day after this. Gerald suddenly took a 2-week vacation when he came back. The will changes were gone. Nicole, who'd been examining the photos, looked up sharply. Gone. As in shredded, deleted, erased. Alexander's weathered face hardened. Someone made damn sure those changes never saw daylight. I thought about Gerald's nervous behavior in his office time to pay our family lawyer another visit. An hour later, I sat across from Gerald in his private office. No family members this time, no legal posturing, just truth I know about the will. Gerald, I placed Alexander's photos on his desk. I know Ellis tried to change it. His face went ash gray. Where did you get these? Does it matter? What matters is what happened to those changes and why you took that convenient vacation. Gerald loosened his tie, eyes darting to his door. You don't understand. There were threats from Gareth. He nodded almost imperceptibly. He said he'd ruin me. Said he had proof of indiscretions, things that would cost me my license. Tell me about the changes Ellis wanted to make. Gerald's hand shook as he reached for his water glass. He wanted to restructure everything. Remove Gareth's access to the trust, set up independent oversight, and he hesitated. And what he wanted to add provisions about foul play if anything happened to him. Under suspicious circumstances, control would pass directly to you, bypassing the family entirely. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Ellis suspected something might happen to him. He was scared. Gerald's voice dropped to barely a whisper. Said his father was acting strange, making threats. Then his car? My heart stopped. What about his car? 2 days before the accident, Ellis ordered a full maintenance check, said. The brakes felt soft. Gerald pulled out his phone, scrolling through old texts. He sent me this the morning he died. The message read, if anything happens to me, tell Annalise to check the garage security footage from last night. Did you check the footage? I demanded. It was gone. System malfunction? They said. Gerald's face crumpled. I should have done more, should have stood up to them. You can do something now. I leaned forward. Help me prove what they did. He stared at me for a long moment, then reached into his desk drawer. Ellis left this with me, said to give it to you if anything felt wrong about his death. He handed me a USB drive. It's footage from his private office. He had his own cameras installed. I clutched the drive, my hands trembling. What's on it? I don't know. Never looked. Gerald straightened his tie. But whatever it is, Gareth was willing to blackmail me to keep the will from changing. Think about that. I called Alexander the moment I left Gerald's office. Within an hour, we were watching the footage in Nicole's apartment. The video showed Gareth in Ellis's office late at night going through his desk. Then Cruz entered carrying what looked like maintenance reports. The brake lines are taken care of. Then Cruz said on screen, looks like a normal wear and tear issue. Gareth nodded. Good, and the security cameras? Looped footage from last week. No one will know I felt sick. Nicole gripped my hand as we watched Gareth pull out his phone. It's done, he said to someone. Ellis won't be changing anything now. Alexander paused the video. There's more, but I think we've seen enough. This plus Gerald's testimony, it's not just fraud anymore. Nicole said quietly, this is murder. I thought about Ellis's last words to me, his insistence that I wait to open the folder he'd known. He'd been gathering evidence, preparing for the worst. Alexander, I said, my voice steady despite the rage burning inside me. I need you to do 2 things. First, get this footage authenticated and secured. Second, find out everything you can about Ellis's car maintenance records, every mechanic, every service date. What are you gonna do? Nicole asked. I pulled out my phone, dialing Gerald's number. I'm going to give our family lawyer a chance to get ahead of this before the police get involved. As the phone rang, I looked at the frozen image of Gareth and Cruz on screen. They thought they'd silenced. Ellis erased his final moves. Instead, they'd given me everything I needed to destroy them. Gerald, I said when he answered, we need to talk about Ellis's accident, and this time you're going to tell me everything. The game wasn't just about inheritance anymore, it was about justice, and I was just getting started. The estate house's security system chimed as I entered the access code inside, the sound of braking. Glass and drunken laughter echoed from the library. Cruz had been treating the place like his personal party palace since Ellis's death. Not anymore. I walked into the library, flanked by 2 police officers and a court-martial. Cruz sprawled on Ellis's antique leather sofa, surrounded by empty bottles and 3 glassy socialites. Party's over. I announced, holding up the eviction notice, "You have 30 minutes to leave the premises." Cruz blinked at me stupidly. "You can't. This is my family's house, actually." Officer Reynolds stepped forward. "Mrs. Harding has legal custody of the property. Anyone remaining after 30 minutes will be arrested for trespassing." "This is ridiculous." One of the socialites stumbled to her feet. "Do you know who his father is?" "Oh, I know exactly who Gareth is." I smiled coldly. "In fact, I just sent some interesting documents about him to the Hardy Foundation board. They're particularly curious about where their charitable donations have been going." Cruz's face went from drunk to sober in seconds. "What documents? The ones showing how Daddy laundered foundation money through your failed business ventures." I gestured to the mess around us. "Speaking of which, how are you affording all this partying? Last I checked, your trust fund was frozen during probate." She snarled. Standing unsteadily. "You think you can just 25 minutes now?" Officer Reynolds cut in. Tick-tock as Cruz and his friends gathered their things. My phone buzzed, a text from Margaret. "We need to talk privately." I found her waiting. In the garden, 30 minutes later, after the police had escorted Cruz out, she looked older somehow, her perfect makeup unable to hide her exhaustion. "Name your price," she said without preamble. "Excuse me to stop this vendetta, to leave our family alone." She pulled out her checkbook. "Whatever Ellis promised you, I'll double it." I laughed. "You still think this is about money? What else could it be? You're not exactly from our world." "Dear." I pulled out my phone and played one of Ellis's voice messages Dad's using. "Cruz to launder. Money millions missing from the foundation. If anything happens to me, the proof is in the offshore account. Records." Margaret's face went pale. "Turn that off." "Why? Afraid of what else Ellis recorded?" I stepped closer. "Like the conversation where Gareth threatened to handle him if he changed the will." "You don't understand our family," she whispered. "The legacy. We have to protect legacy." My voice shook with rage. "Your legacy is built on fraud and murder. Ellis knew it, and he left me everything I needed to prove it. We can make a deal." "No." I showed her my phone screen displaying an email draft. "This goes to the FBI in an hour. Complete records of Gareth's embezzlement, Cruz's money laundering, and evidence of Ellis's murder." Unless her eyes narrowed. "Unless what confessed, tell me everything. Why Ellis really died?" Margaret sank onto a garden bench, her composure finally cracking. Gareth was losing control. The foundation's donors were asking questions. Ellis threatened to expose everything, so Gareth had. Him killed. He said it would look like an accident. Her voice was barely audible. Cruz handled the details. I didn't know until after I pressed record on my phone, letting her words capture clearly, and the will changes. Gareth blackmailed Gerald, said he'd exposed some scandal from law school. She looked up at me, suddenly seeming small. Ellis was right about everything about all of us. Yes, he was. I stopped the recording. "The FBI will have this by morning along with everything else. Please." She reached for her. "My arm? We can work something out. Money, properties, anything." I pulled away. "Ellis was your son. He died because of your family's greed. There's no working this out then." "Why?" She gestured helplessly. "Why offer me the chance to confess? Because Ellis would have wanted the truth from at least one of you." I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Margaret, don't bother warning Gareth. The evidence is already backed up in multiple locations. As I walked away, my phone buzzed again. Alexander found something else audio. File from Ellis's office day before the accident, Gareth talking about making sure Ellis doesn't need to live forever. I texted back, send it to the FBI, time to end this. In the estate house, I went to Ellis's study. Everything was exactly as he'd left it. The leather-bound books, the antique desk, the photo of us on our wedding day. He'd known what his family was capable of, had prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. I promised I'd burn it all down, I whispered to his empty chair. And tomorrow, it all goes up in flames. The final pieces were in place by this time tomorrow. The Hardings' carefully constructed world would be ashes, just like Ellis planned. Happy birthday, my love, I whispered, placing fresh roses on Ellis's grave. It should have been his 39th birthday. Instead, I was hosting a different kind of celebration. The private memorial I'd arranged drew people the Hardings had never bothered to know. Ellis's college roommate, his favorite barista, the elderly gardener who'd worked the estate grounds for 30 years, real people who'd loved the man. Not the heir he used to bring me soup when I was sick. Maria, his former housekeeper, told the small gathering not store-bought, he'd make it himself. Even though his mother said it wasn't proper for someone of his status as people shared their stories. My phone vibrated, a text from Alexander. Need to see you now, found something big. I slipped away to meet him. In the estate's garden house, his face told me everything. This was worse than we'd imagined. Ellis had a child, he said without preamble, handing me a file from before he met you. A 5-year-old boy, the world tilted sideways. What his name is James, the mother is Freya Martin. They had a brief relationship 6 years ago. Alexander spread out documents on the table. Gareth paid her $2 million to keep quiet and stay away. My hands shook as I looked at the photos. A little boy with Ellis's eyes and smile did. Ellis, no, he found out 3 months before he died. Started making arrangements to acknowledge James. Legally, Alexander's voice hardened. That's when Gareth's threats escalated because James would be the primary heir. I whispered even before the new will. Exactly, I found Freya. She's willing to talk 2 hours later. I sat across from an elegant woman in a quiet cafe. Freya Martin clutched her coffee cup like a lifeline. Ellis came to see us. She said, her voice tight with emotion. Said he couldn't live. With the lie anymore, wanted to make things right. What happened? Gareth showed up at my house the next day. Said if I ever contacted Ellis again, he'd make sure I lost custody of James completely. She pulled out her phone, showing me threatening texts, but Ellis kept trying. Sent letters through a private courier. Do you still have them? She nodded, reaching into her bag. Ellis wrote about you, said you were different from his family, someone he could trust. The letters were devastating in there. Honesty, Ellis writing to his son, explaining why he had to stay away, promising to make things right. The final letter was dated 3 days before his death. He was going to announce everything at the next board meeting. Freya said, "Acknowledge James publicly, change the inheritance structure." She wiped away tears. Then the accident happened. My phone buzzed. Nicole FBI just picked up Cruz Gareth's being brought in for questioning. "Freya," I said carefully, "would you be willing to testify about the threats? The payoff everything will it help prove they killed him?" "Yes," she straightened her spine, then, "Yes for Ellis, for James." Back at the estate, I found Tiffany waiting in the driveway. She looked wild. Mascara streaked down her face. "They arrested Cruz," she said. "Daddy's being questioned." "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything Ellis did." I showed her the photo of James. "Want to explain why you helped hide your nephew's existence?" She staggered back. "How did you?" Ellis knew everything, Tiffany, the fraud, the threats, his son, he documented it all. I stepped closer. "The only question is how involved were you in his murder?" "I didn't." She swallowed hard. "I just knew they were going to stop him from changing things. I didn't know they'd kill him. But you suspected and you did nothing. He was going to ruin everything." She screamed, "Bring in." "Some random kid give away our birthright to a bastard and a gold digger." "No," I said quietly. "He was going to fix what your family broke, and now I'm finishing what he started." My phone buzzed again. "Alexander Gareth's being formally charged. Margaret's agreed to testify against him. It's over, Tiffany." I said, "The FBI has everything. The only question is whether you want to get ahead of this or go down with them." She crumpled onto the driveway, sobs racking her body. "What do you want from me?" The truth, all of it, starting with the night before Ellis's accident as Tiffany began to talk. I thought about the little boy in the photo. Ellis's son. Another victim of the Hardings' toxic legacy, but not anymore. Ellis had left me everything I needed to protect his real family, his son, the people who truly loved him, and the truth he died trying to expose tomorrow. James would meet his inheritance, not just the money or the properties, but the story of a father who loved him enough to risk everything. And that was worth more than all the Harding fortune combined, death, greed, and heirs. The Harding family scandal screamed the headline of the Boston Globe. I set the newspaper aside as Gerald Sherman entered the conference room, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "The DA wants me to testify," he said, collapsing into a chair. "They're offering immunity." Nicole, who'd been reviewing depositions, looked up sharply. "Take it before." "Someone else does, Margaret already has." I added, sliding today's immunity agreement across the table. "She's turning state's evidence against Gareth." Gerald's hands trembled as he reached for the document. "If I do this, I'll never practice law again. If you don't, you'll practice in prison." The door burst open. Alexander rushed in. Laptop in hand. "You need to see this now." He played a video. Gareth in his office, face red with rage, shouting at Ellis. The timestamp showed 3 days before the accident. "You." "Ungrateful little bastard." Gareth's voice crackled through the speakers. "You think you can just throw away everything I built for what some bastard child?" And your gold-digging wife. Ellis's response was calm, steady. "They're my family, my real family, and I won't let you threaten them anymore. You don't need to live forever." "Son?" Gareth's voice turned ice cold. "Remember that?" The video ended. Gerald had gone pale. "Where did you get this?" he whispered. Ellis had cameras everywhere. Alexander said hidden ones. He was building a case. My phone buzzed a text from Freya. "James keeps asking about his daddy's picture. When can we meet Gerald? I said the DA's offer expires in an hour. What's it going to be?" He picked up a pen with shaking fingers. "Ellis tried to tell me about the threats, the missing money. I should have listened." As he signed, Nicole's phone rang. She answered, listened, then smiled grimly. "They just arrested Tiffany." She cracked during questioning, confirmed everything about the brake lines. "One more thing," Alexander said, pulling out a thick envelope. "Found these in Ellis's private safe. Letters he wrote to James, documenting everything, including his attempts to change the will. I thought of the little boy with Ellis's eyes. Make copies, send them to the DA. The next few hours were a blur of legal documents and police statements. By evening, the news was everywhere. Gareth arrested for conspiracy to commit murder, Cruz charged with tampering with evidence, Tiffany facing accessory charges. Then Margaret called. "You've destroyed us," she said, her voice hollow. "No, you did that yourselves. I just exposed it. They're calling us murderers. Criminals, aren't you?" A long pause. "Ellis was my son, and you helped kill him. My voice was ice. For money, for control, for your precious legacy. What happens now?" "Now James gets everything Ellis wanted him to have. The truth comes out, and I looked at the immunity agreement on the table. You testify every detail. Or I release the recording of you discussing." "The brake tampering with Cruz?" She gasped. "How did you?" "Ellis recorded everything, Margaret. He knew what you were capable of." After she hung up, Nicole touched my arm. "You okay?" "No." I stared out the window at the setting sun. "But I will be." The door opened again. Alexander entered with a young woman, one of Gerald's former assistants. "Tell her what you told me." Alexander said. The assistant stepped forward. "The day before the accident, Mr. Harding Ellis came to the office. He left this with me." She held out a sealed envelope, said to give it to his wife. If anything happened to him. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single page in Ellis's handwriting. "My dearest Inez, if you're reading this, they did what I feared they would. But I've given you everything you need to protect yourself and James. The truth is, your weapon, use it. I'm sorry, I couldn't finish this fight. Sorry, I left you to face them alone. But I'm not sorry. I married you. Not sorry. I trusted you with everything, including the future I wanted for." My son, make them pay, make them face what they've done, then build something better from the ashes. All my love. Ellis. I folded the letter carefully, tucking it away. Alexander set up a meeting with Freya and James. "It's time they came home. The press will be all over this," Nicole warned. "Good." I picked up the immunity agreement Gerald had signed. "Let everyone see exactly who the Hardings really are." My phone buzzed one final time. A message from Gareth's number. "You'll regret this." I smiled, thinking of Ellis's letter of James's photo of justice finally being served. "No," I whispered. "I really won't." The courthouse buzzed with tension as I took the stand. Gareth sat at the defense table, still wearing his custom suits, still projecting authority, but his eyes told a different story. He knew what was coming. "Mrs. Harding," the prosecutor began, "please tell the court about the last conversation you had with your husband." Ellis gave me a folder I said clearly told me not to open it until his family showed their true colors. And what did that folder contain? Evidence, financial records showing embezzlement from the Hardy Foundation, recordings of threats made against him, documentation about his son James, whom Gareth had paid to keep hidden. Gareth's attorney stood objection, speculation about overruled, the judge cut in, continue. I detailed everything. The altered brake records, the missing security footage, Gerald's confession about the will. With each word, Gareth's face grew darker, and this recording the prosecutor held up a flash drive was made in Ellis's office, 3 days before his death. Yes. Ellis had installed his own hidden cameras after the threats began. They played the video. Gareth's voice filled the courtroom. "You don't need to live forever, son." Margaret was next on the stand. Her designer outfit, replaced by something plainly expensive but subdued, her immunity deal had broken the case wide open. Yes, she testified, voice trembling. Gareth ordered Cruz to tamper with the brakes, said it had to look like an accident. And why was this done? Ellis was going to expose everything at the board meeting. The missing millions, his son James, all of it. She wouldn't look at Gareth. We couldn't let that happen. The prosecutor pressed. Gareth said it was for the family, for our legacy. Margaret's composure cracked. I let them kill my son for money during a recess. Nicole found me in the hallway. Tiffany's attorney called. She's ready to allocute full confession, and Cruz singing like a bird threw Gareth under every bus he could find back in court. Freya testified about the payoff, the threats, Ellis's attempts to reconnect with James. She read from Ellis's letters, his words painting a picture of a father desperate to right his wrongs. "The last time I saw him," Freya said, clutching one of the letters, "he promised to make everything right." 3 days later, he was dead. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records showed. Millions siphoned through shell companies. Security footage revealed Cruz tampering with Ellis's car. Phone records documented the conspiracy. When the verdict came, it was unanimous guilty on all counts. Before sentencing, the judge said, "Does the defendant wish to make a statement?" Gareth stood slowly for a moment. He looked every bit his age. Everything I did was to protect what we built. Ellis was going to destroy. He was going to fix it. I interrupted, standing. "Tell the truth. Protect his son. That's..." "What really scared you, wasn't it? Not the money, but the truth. He'd be ashamed of you." Gareth spat. "Destroying his family's name like this?" I smiled, remembering Ellis's letter. "No, he told me to burn it all down, and that's exactly what I did." The judge's gavel cracked like thunder. "Gareth Harding, for the conspiracy to commit murder of your own son, for financial fraud, and for the subsequent cover-up, I sentence you to life imprisonment without possibility of parole." As they led him away, I caught Margaret's eye. She looked broken, empty. Cruz sat slumped in handcuffs while Tiffany sobbed quietly in the gallery outside the courthouse. Reporters swarmed, but through the chaos I saw them, Freya and James, waiting by Alexander's car. "Is it over?" Freya asked as I approached. "Yes." I knelt down to James's level. Hi there, I'm Inez. I knew your daddy. The little boy smiled. Ellis's smile. Mommy says we can live in Daddy's house. Now that's right, would you like that? He nodded enthusiastically. Can I see his books? Mommy says he had lots of books he did. I stood taking his small hand and they're all waiting for you. Nicole appeared at my side. The estate transfer papers are ready. James is officially recognized as Ellis's heir, with you as trustee until he's of age, Freya added, just like Ellis wanted. I watched James studying the courthouse with Ellis's curious eyes. The truth hadn't just destroyed the Hardings' legacy, it had restored it to its rightful heir. Let's go home, I said, squeezing James's hand. Your daddy left us quite a story to tell you. As we walked away, I heard Gareth's last words echo in my head. He'd be ashamed of you. No, I thought Ellis would be proud. Proud that the truth had finally won. Proud that his son was home. Proud that justice, though delayed, had finally been served, and somewhere I hoped he was smiling. The estate library smelled of old books and fresh coffee, as James curled up in Ellis's favorite reading chair, completely absorbed in Treasure Island, the same copy his father had loved at his age. Through the window, autumn leaves danced across the garden, where Freya was planting bulbs for spring. Just like Nicole said, watching James. He even holds the book the same way I found more letters yesterday. I told her, pulling out a bundle tied with blue ribbon hidden. In Ellis's desk drawer, he wrote them every week, even when he couldn't send them. The doorbell rang. Alexander stood on the steps holding a thick manila envelope. His face was unreadable. What's wrong? I asked, letting him in. Got the final report from the forensic accountants. He spread documents across the kitchen island. There's another account one we missed. Nicole leaned in. Where Cayman Islands? But here's the thing, it's not in Gareth's name or Cruz's, he pointed to a signature. It's in Margaret's. My hands went cold how much 50 million, and the transfer records he hesitated, they go back 20 years long before Ellis met you, before Ellis was even working for the company. Nicole added the implications, hit me like a wave she was stealing before any of this, before Ellis started investigating. There's more. Alexander pulled out a photo, found this in the bank records. The image showed Margaret with a man I didn't recognize. Both smiling at the camera, the timestamp was from last year. Who is he, Thomas? Reed, former CFO of the Hardy Foundation. Alexander's voice hardened. He resigned suddenly 15 years ago, right after a major audit. Let me guess, the audit found nothing wrong, not a thing. But he moved to the Caymans right after Alexander tapped the photo where he's been managing Margaret's hidden accounts ever since the sound of James laughing drifted in from the library. Such an innocent sound in the middle of all this darkness. She played us, I whispered. Even while turning state's evidence, she was. Hiding this, should we tell the DA? Nicole asked before I could answer. Freya appeared in the doorway, dirt on her knees from gardening. Tell the DA what we showed her the evidence. Her face went pale all this time, she said. While Ellis was trying to fix things, his own mother was the original thief. I finished. James wandered in, book still in hand. Mommy, can we have lunch and Daddy study again? Freya forced a smile. Of course, sweetheart. Go wash up first, after he left. She turned to me. What are you going to? I looked at the photo of Margaret and Thomas, at the evidence of decades of theft, at the proof that Ellis had died trying to expose a corruption that went deeper than any of us knew. Alexander, I said, call the DA. Nicole, contact the Hardy Foundation Board, Freya. I hesitated. Are you okay with more media attention? This will be big. She straightened her spine. Ellis wanted the truth, all of it. We owe him that. I gathered the documents, thinking of Margaret's performance in court, her tears, her carefully crafted testimony. Even then, she'd been protecting her real secrets. One more thing, Alexander said, pulling out his phone. Got this security footage from the bank. In the Caymans 2 days ago, the video showed Margaret. Entering the bank, emerging hours later with a small suitcase, she's moving the money. Nicole realized not anymore. I picked up my phone, dialing the DA's direct line, time to finish what Ellis started for real. This time, as the call connected, James reappeared. Ellis's book hugged to his chest. Can we read in Daddy's chair together? I looked at the evidence spread across the counter, at the child who had his father's love of books and truth, at the family we'd pieced together from the wreckage of lies. Yes, I said, covering the phone. Just give me 5 minutes to make sure justice is really served. Later, curled up in Ellis's chair, with James reading about pirates and treasure. I thought about real treasure, truth, justice, family. The things Ellis had died protecting, the DA was already moving on the new evidence. Margaret's carefully constructed escape plan was unraveling. The last of the Harding secrets would finally see daylight. Annalise, James looked up from the book. Do you think Daddy would like that? We read. Together in his chair, I hugged him closer, breathing in the scent of books and autumn air and hope. Yes, I said, he'd love it more than anything. And somewhere in the garden, spring bulbs waited to bloom, promising new beginnings after the longest winter.